of December 7th. I need to read the disclaimer, and I will do that, and then I will need a motion and a second, and then Rachel will call the roll, which will count as the roll, and the approval of this message will count as one and the same. This meeting of the Engineering, Public Works and Planning Committee is being conducted electronically pursuant to Governor Bill Lee's Executive Order number 16. I would ask for a motion that conducting this meeting electronically is necessary to protect the public health, safety, and welfare of the community in light of the coronavirus. Need a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All right. Rachel, please.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sciarrino?
Yes.
Commissioner Blair?
Yes.
Chairman Cush?
Yes, and present. Do we have minutes to approve, Rachel?
Yes, sir.
All right, I would like to call on Vice Chair Piercy for the approval of the minutes, please.
Chairman Cush, I have reviewed the minutes and they seem to be in order. I move for their approval.
All right, we need a second.
Second.
All right, Rachel?
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sciarrino?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Blair?
Yes.
Chairman Cush?
Yes. All right, I'm going to move to the Highway Department report. We have no representatives for the Highway report tonight, but the gist of their message that they phoned in to me was, if you will all check your mailboxes, the new road board book for 2020 is in your mail, and there has just been a slight adjustment of roads from previous last year. In round numbers, we are responsible for 670 miles of county roadway and 303 miles of subdivision streets for a total of 973 miles. That is a difference of approximately 3 miles from last year, an increase last year. We lost some county miles and gained some subdivision miles, so a net increase of about 3 miles. So if you don't have them already, check your mailbox downstairs, and that concludes the highway report. Do we need it? We don't necessarily need a motion for that. That's just information. Basically, we're not spending any money. Tanya, if you don't mind, if you will come up and do building codes. And
good evening.
Good evening.
All right. I know last month I didn't bring you guys a very good report last month. I'm going to do better this month, I promise. With 17 and a half working days in November, the Building Codes Department issued 302 building permits. 88 of those were single-family dwellings, which is up from 68 this time last year, and up 26 from last month. We drove about 8,400 miles with a total of about 1,600 inspections.
How many vehicles is that on the road for those 8,400 miles?
That would be 7, 8, 10.
Okay.
That includes zoning enforcement and building inspection. And development tax, we collected a total of $468,750.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir. You are recognized, Chairman Harris.
You said we did 302 permits. That's for the month of November, right?
Mm-hmm.
So is that up from October?
Yes, it is.
So we didn't see a slow off with all the lumber prices and all
Well,
the...
October we did. If you'll recall, last month we seen a decent dip last month compared to the month before and compared to the same month last year.
So with the building
pretty
products
significant.
starting to go down, we're starting to see more traffic.
Exactly, and actually I run a report right before I came here tonight, and we're, 6 work days in to December, and we've already issued 43 single-family dwellings in December. So it's definitely starting to pick back up again. All right, so development tax I did. Does anybody have any?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
development tax, just want to point out to the body that we're down again another 80,000 or so. And if you do the 5-month average that we've had thus far this year compared to last year's $6 million grand total, we're trending to be $500,000 down for the year. We're currently down several $100,000. I know I would like the budget chairman to just be aware of that, and Mayor Ketchering, because I know we spent some of this money in some of our conversations, we default to, we can grab some development tax. Now, having said that, can you help us see why this is trending down, or do you have any thoughts? And we may ask Doug the same question when he does his inventory.
I will say I run the same report for development tax that I did for building code, for permits before I came over here today. And like I said, 6 work days into December, and we've already collected $579,000 in development tax this month. There was an apartment complex in the city of Smyrna, I believe it was. I believe it was the town of Smyrna. So our numbers are going to be up a little bit in December, hopefully a lot of it.
So we had 302 permits. 88 of them was single-family dwelling.
Correct, up from 62 in October and 68 from this month last year. But
Apartments are really generating a lot of them.
right, they're starting to come back up again, and I really believe that the dip that we seen last month had a lot to do with lumber prices. You know, I talked after I left the meeting this last month. I did start to talk to the builders and kind of ask, and nobody seems to be slowing down, or they're not, they haven't shown any fear, or, everybody seems to be just clipping right along. I really believe that the dip that we seen last month had something to do with the lumber prices.
Yes, sir. Mayor, you're recognized, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Craig, you had shared with me that there were several projects that you were aware of, being in that business. There were several projects that are in the ground and just haven't really gotten started. They're just doing earthwork, right?
I can only attest to my business, but we're seeing a significant slowdown. But we're also in the drywall stage, which is 45 to 60 days into the process. We're seeing it extremely slow, but we're also seeing a tremendous amount of building and a tremendous amount of purchase orders coming in, which means there's product going into the ground. Is that your question, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir. But just driving around yesterday, Mr. Sandel and I were driving around, and we saw several over the weekend, I guess, going from the nursing home on Saturday all the way to Laverne. We saw several just tracts of property that are being bulldozed and, getting ready to see subdivisions. I would assume that have already been approved. Out Christiana way, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But, so we may see an upswing, I guess, depending on.
Yeah, according to all the ones that I talked to, and I mean, some of ours are very large builders, there is a ton of starts going in, and then a ton of them that getting ready to go in. So I think we're going to get a big tick up from that. So I'm not really nervous about that, but I know we lost a lot of money during October.
Yeah, well, this last 6 months has been kind of off and on and up and down, and we really didn't know what was going to happen. We stayed pretty steady, busy. It didn't slow to the point that we didn't have anything to do, but it was hard to predict, usually from one month to the next. And now it seems to be picking back up again. All right, and if nobody has any more questions, I'll go on to our zoning enforcement report. We did 135 inspections in the month of November. And that concludes my report, if nobody has any questions.
Motion to approve report.
Second.
All right, and Chairman P. has a second. All right.
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Blair?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sharino?
Yes.
Chairman Cush?
Yes.
Thank you. Have a Merry Christmas.
Christmas.
All right, sorry. I'm still thinking about if we can ever convince the state to give us autonomy to chart our own course with development tax and how to collect fees, we would be in much better shape and to pay for the growth that we are experiencing. I mentioned to Commissioner Dodd, who is part of my infrastructure committee, that we're going to get the band back together here shortly and approach our fellow legislatures and again trying to come to some agreement or change of law to where we can have some more autonomy. We have seen in papers recently, Laverne being the last one, who's increasing their development taxes, almost tripling. But it's no secret that what we collect is not paying for growth. And we just cannot maintain that course. And we don't have a lot of options other than a wheel tax and increased property tax. And that's not a good solution for a progressive county such as ours. And we're hamstrung by the state, and that's old school, and we need to fix that. So we're going to try and make those changes again. It's the same story every year, but we're going to try and make those changes again. If you're not paddling, you're not stirring up the water, right? So, all right. Doug, are you ready?
Wait just a minute.
I'm sorry.
I've got
Yes.
a question for you on what you were just discussing.
Yes.
And the mayor may can chime in on this because he's been there. Can we go down there and lobby our cause? A group of us go down there and speak on this?
Yes, sir, but I think the proper procedure would be to the steering committee, back to Commissioner Harris's committee, and you need to have, what you want. It needs to be exact. You need a member of the House and Senate, whoever's going to carry it, be prepared to introduce the bill. We've got a cutoff date of, I think it's been established around February 9th, when those final bill cutoff day is, and those bills have to be dropped in both houses. Once that starts, it'll go through state and local, so their senator who carrying the bill would introduce it, the House member would introduce it, and then on the day that it's being introduced is the day that you would go down and support that. So if you're looking for local option to where it just pertains to the zip code of Rutherford County, or excuse me, the population of Rutherford County, then that's how you designate it, just for our county and not all the other 94 counties.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Chairman
Well,
Harris.
The reason that I asked Tanya about the permits, one of the things that the legislator said is, why don't we go to $1 per square foot? That's one of their options that they're trying to tell us. But if you look at the numbers, we had 302 permits and only 88 of them was single-family dwelling. We would have lost money. So I feel like that's not a viable option based on the amount of apartments that we're doing. So I agree with you. The infrastructure committee has got to get back together and start. And I think tell everybody we have a meeting with all the legislators on the first Monday of January. So all the legislators will be here and the steering committee will be holding a meeting. So these questions need to be asked.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, and the people forget that apartment complexes pay a huge tax, but that would be small square footage per unit, but they pay a nice tax on that. All right, Doug, and if you have any words of wisdom to add to our development tax discussion, you feel free to.
I have words, I don't know if they're wisdom, but. Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well tonight. Just to kind of further the discussion on the development tax and development, Tanya's already kind of mentioned kind of her take on it, and I would agree with what she's saying. When all this with COVID first started happening, we did see a slowdown as far as the number of plans that were coming in. That seems to have kind of taken care of itself. We're not really seeing that kind of a slowdown anymore. In fact, we've got several plats and plans in the system. We've got several coming up before Planning Commission next week. We recorded this past month a couple of larger section subdivisions, which is why when you look at the available lot inventory, it's actually gone up just a little bit from last month, about 50 lots, not quite, maybe 47. But the only reason is because one of the plats we looked at had, it was in excess of 50 lots, if I remember right. And when we saw the report from Tanya's office, it was almost the same day after, or like the day, within a few days after recording that plat, they took out 29 permits in that one section of that subdivision. So that part of growth doesn't seem to, that seems to be picking back up, which this time of year is a little, honestly, a little surprising, because usually around the holidays you start seeing a little bit of a slowdown, but the last few years we haven't seen much of one, even around the holidays. So as far as, the development tax numbers themselves, of course, that's dependent upon how many houses and things are being built. I agree with Tanya, the lumber prices were pretty much through the roof there for a little while. That seems to be moderating somewhat. So I expect there to be more activity, and based on what she said as far as the number of permits they've already issued to date, and today's only the 8th, we can expect to see a pretty good crop next year, or next month, I should say, when we're here at this. Well, I guess it would be next year too, but when we come here next meeting. So as far as that goes, so. But I guess I kind of stole a little of my own thunder there talking about the available lot inventory. It is up just a little bit, but you can tell it's down from this time last year. This time last year, we were up at 1,000 lots. This year, we're looking at 870 available lots out there. And that number, again, has been kind of fluctuating a little bit, but it's fluctuating, but on a downward trend right now. So. If there's no questions on that, I'll jump into the rezoning report. And of course, if there's other questions about development tax and whatnot, I'll be happy to help answer those. We have 3 rezoning requests coming before you at next week's meeting. The first is for property located along J.D. Todd Road. This is a zoning request that came as a result of a zoning enforcement action. The applicants purchased the property, began operating a dog boarding grooming business thereafter. I don't think it was right after, but the business came to the attention of our zoning enforcement office. They confirmed with us that no business permit had ever, or approval, I should say, zoning approval had ever been granted for it. After discussing the situation with the applicants, we did discuss several options for them. A home-based business was not an option because dog kennels and the like are not allowed specifically as home-based businesses, either minor or major. So one thing that they could do, they could zone their property agricultural residential, AR, which is actually a down zone from what it's zoned right now, residential medium density. They have over 5 acres of land, so they would qualify for the minimum size of that district, which is 5 acres. And they could ask for a special exception, so that's what they have decided to do. Only employees of the business actually live on the property. It is within an existing 1,500 square foot building along the east property line, close to it. The applicant stated it is insulated. There's not specific operating hours per se, but they did indicate they never start before 7 and they don't go beyond 8 o'clock. The applicant also indicated they can only groom a maximum of 4 dogs in any given day just because of just like I said, the only people that actually work there live on the property, and they don't have any plans for expansion. There was a few questions from the Planning Commission about the maximum number of animals at one time, which they said if it ever got to that point, it'd be 24, but that probably would not be the case. They don't want to keep that many animals there from our conversations. There was also some question about county notification protocols in the area. We did not receive any phone calls about this. They're just making sure that everything was sent out. Following those questions, the public hearing, the Planning Commission did recommend approval of that by a unanimous vote. The second piece of property that's up for rezoning is for property located along Burnt Knob Road. And just bear with me a second as I zoom my surface over to here. That's actually 4 separate pieces of property along Burnt Knob Road on the north side, just to the east of the Rogers Group quarry. Application has been submitted for this. The applicant's information, he would like to use the subject property for storage, which will be for their existing business across Burnt Knob Road. The business across the street was rezoned actually about a year or so ago on the south side of Burnt Knob Road. He does like a land clearing business, has mulch and things like that. There is a concept plan included with your agenda packets. It's on your iPads. The concept plan that you see before you shows mulch storage areas as well as some tree and landscape plant growing area toward the rear of the property. The existing vegetation along Burnt Knob Road has remained undisturbed. They want to keep that as a buffer area. There's also an existing house on one of the properties at 5818 Burnt Knob. The existing house at 5808 Burnt Knob would be removed, and the applicant wants to use that septic site for his business across the street. They did have a site plan approved for that business across the street, across Burnt Knob Road, but the soil site they thought they had there isn't going to work, so they're going to work with our highway department to use this particular site, bore under Burnt Knob Road basically is what they'll have to do. Just incidentally, they could do that without having to rezone the property. This is just kind of part of it, so just wanted to make sure you were aware of that. There's no parking area shown, but they will need to submit a site plan to show improved access drives, those kind of things. The Planning Commission did have some questions about the use of the existing septic site on the subject property for the property across Burnt Knob Road. After the public hearing was opened, there was a speaker asking about the future of the property and the possibility of it becoming a rock quarry. We did discuss at that time the zoning of the property, and which is they're asking for light industrial. Quarries would not be allowed in the light industrial zone. There is some discussion as well as to why the applicant was requesting light industrial zoning, but that was, again, because the existing business across Burnt Knob was also zoned light industrial. And there was also some questions about retail traffic and the mulch piles itself. Again, following questions in the public hearing, the Planning Commission did recommend approval of the application by a unanimous vote. Do you have a question? Okay.
So my question to you is, with the rock quarry, did y'all do a traffic study on this?
No, we
Do
didn't.
you not feel that it's going to cause a whole lot when all these trucks come out of the quarry that it's light industrial?
Well, for what they're using it for the proposed use, there's not going to be that much traffic coming in. Now, if let's say for the sake of argument, it's rezoned and they sell the property to someone that wants to redevelop the property that's going to create a lot of traffic, we would have the ability to request a traffic study at that time. So, yes, sir. Our last rezoning request for your consideration is for property located along Shelbyville Pike. This is located at 4372. They are asking for zoning to commercial general. The applicant would like to develop the property into an automobile sales and service station. Motor vehicle repair establishments are allowed in the CS zone, the commercial services zone, but if you want to do sales, they have to be zoned commercial general. There is a concept plan, again, with your agenda packets. The existing office building used to be a medical doctor's office. That's office professionally zoned right now. But that building would be remodeled into the main office, and the plan shows proposed buildings for servicing of vehicles. That would have to be done through a site plan. They may not do that right off the bat. We'll just have to kind of wait and see what ends up coming up with that. But the plan also shows areas for car sales and employee parking. Again, if it is approved, they would have to submit a site plan regardless of the type of improvements they wanted to make. The property, again, is already zoned for non-residential purposes, office professionally. The site's surrounded on two sides with commercial general. You have a camper sales kind of surrounds the property on the south with commercial services zoning. The property is also located along Shelbyville Pike, which is classified as an urban style corridor. The planning did have some questions about the extent of car repairs on the property. The applicant did state it's not necessarily a shop for just everyday retail use. It's more for the cars that he has on site that need to have some work done on them. Also, that we would need a truck turning template for this particular site, just to make sure that a fire truck or vehicles that come with the vehicle, or larger trucks with vehicles on them, would be able to get off Shelbyville Pike and onto the property. But following those questions, the Planning Commission did recommend approval, again by a unanimous vote. So that was a whole lot of talking, and I apologize, but if you have questions, I'm here to answer them.
Any questions for Doug? All three of these.
One.
Yeah, go ahead.
Doug, on the last one on the Chevrolet Highway, have you had any calls on objection on that or anything?
No, sir. No, none.
I'm a little concerned because those people are without a commissioner right now, and we're in the process of getting them one.
Right.
I wanted to know.
Right, yeah, nobody's called the office and talked to us about it, no, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Doug on any of these three projects? Seeing none, I would like to get a motion for approval of his report.
To approve.
Second.
Rachel?
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Mr. Dodd,
Yes.
Commissioner Harris,
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sharino,
Yes.
Chairman Cush.
Yes. Doug, did you have anything else you wanted to add? Okay, thank you very much. Mac? I know. It is.
Or shall I say, ho, ho, ho.
Good evening, how are y'all?
Good.
We'll start out with the landfill report as usual. There's not a lot going on out there. We did have an inspection. It takes TDEC a while to get the information back to us, but we've got some leachate outbreaks that we have been addressing and are still addressing. One of them's on the west side, the other one's kind of on the north side. Leachate is the liquid within the landfill, and our landfill does not have a system to catch that. So our process is to wait till it leaks and try to stop it. Any questions on that?
What's the gist of the report? Just that we had an outbreak and we need to fix it?
Yes, they do a pretty lengthy inspection, and actually it's 2 landfills, so they do one on both of them. So, you know, we've gotten the V2 because the leachate is able to get into the stormwater collection system. But we've been working on that even before we got the report back from them. Our personnel was out there with them when they did the inspection, so we saw that. But the actual inspection back to us was 21 days later, but we ain't got it all finished, but we've got a big head start on it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I have to beg for forgiveness. I interrupted Steve to talk about the first item on the agenda, and I missed Mac's comments. And what I just heard sounded concerning. I'm gonna have to ask you to repeat yourself.
Okay.
Sorry about that, Chairman.
The month of November, early in November, we had a landfill inspection by TDOT or TDEC, and it was like the 21st when we actually got a copy of it. But our personnel was on site and talked to them when they did their inspection. So we had 2 areas of leachate outbreak, one on the north side and one on the west side. That's where the liquid from inside the landfill is running on top of the ground or running down the ground. So we're in the process of trying to get all that situated and get it stopped from running.
I just know that's a big deal, and
Yes.
that's an unexpected. We're spending lots of money on leachate collections and wells, and so have you pursued a ultimate solution for this particular outbreak, or is this just one of those anomalies we're going to encounter? Or
We don't have a leachate collection system, you know, so until something like that happens, then we'll continue to have these type issues.
could you determine what components were behind an outbreak or an illicit discharge, whatever you want to call it? What conditions created it, and there'll be more of that?
Yes, throughout now this is on the old closed garbage side is where this is happening. A lot of that material is decomposed, but it's still decomposing, and as you know, when things decompose, it creates a liquid, and that liquid is what's called leachate, and it's going to go somewhere. We don't have a system to capture that. Now, our landfill was built with each individual cell almost on a daily basis. Everything was encapsulated. So that doesn't allow for transfer from one to the other. So that's what creates this issue of running, and it will eventually seek its way out to the surface. It normally does not go up. It normally goes out. So most often the leachate outbreaks are on the side slopes of the landfill.
Well, I don't want to overemphasize this, and perhaps our request for proposals will ultimately help us address this, but it's just a topic of concern. And do you know the expense of the repair? And did you have that in your budget and those kind of things?
Yes, we have contractor on site. So, once we find out what's going on like that, and then he mobilizes his equipment and starts moving dirt and trying to get it sealed off. The best way to try to seal it off is to get a lot of clay on top of it and pack it in pretty tight. And the intent is to make the leachate turn back into the landfill instead of running off somewhere else.
Chairman Harris.
So you say we don't have a leachate collection system. How much does that cost?
To go back and retrofit would be pretty expensive. I don't have a
Millions?
number. Yes, millions.
This landfill was pre-synthetic liner days?
Yes.
So you don't really have a drain system to collect. So right now, as water or liquid does, it finds the least course of resistance. And like Max said, you basically have a bunch of individual little cells under a huge mountain. And it's going to find a way out. And you just don't know where it's going to be. You go out one day and you see, up from the ground comes a bubbling crude. And then you send a team out there to try and remediate, turn it up, and then you go back to the house and wait for 1 day, 1 month for the next bubbling crude to come up. And that's what he's been dealing with for years, and we will continue to deal with for years. It's perpetual.
So if we kept the landfill, we eventually got to have a leachate collection system,
Yes.
which is millions of dollars.
Yes.
Or you just keep putting Band-Aids on the breakouts.
And let me add to that.
An EPA situation that comes up.
Exactly. Let me add to that, we have a gas migration issue. The methane gas, similar situation. We've drilled some holes and had some vents for it, but we don't have a true collection system everywhere. So what's creating the leachate outbreaks is the gas migration. And the way you can tell that is when it comes out, and he was saying it jokingly, but when it actually has air bubbles in it, that is the methane gas in it, and that's what's pushing it that direction.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir, you're recognized, Commissioner Cook.
when you say an outbreak, and I'm trying to picture, is this a trickle? Is this seepage? I'm trying to draw a picture in my mind what an outbreak would look like.
The term through TDEC is outbreak, so it can be a seepage and it can be a flood. It's still an outbreak. Ours is seepage. When you first notice it, if it's been dry weather and you see a wet spot, you've got one that's starting. When it's wintertime and it's wet all the time, it's hard to detect that until it's actually flowing. And then the message that you try to take then is stop the flow, keep it from getting into any stormwater, and then address the actual leak itself. So it's several steps to getting it fixed. Any other landfill questions?
All right, continue on.
We had a household hazardous waste event early November. Y'all remember us talking about that?
Yes, sir.
And it's the only one that was held in the state, only mobile collection like that, and we paid for it ourselves. And we guessed pretty doggone close, just a little bit low. If you remember, we budgeted $50,000. The bill wound up being $53,000, almost $500. We had enough money in the line item to cover that. So, and the way purchase orders work, you can go 10% over. So we were within all those boundaries. But I want to let you know that we collected a little over 30 tons of household hazardous waste. A little over 23 of those tons was paint. We did an estimate to see what would prepare for. Shortly after noon, right at noon, we ran out of capacity to take household hazardous waste. Still had a line of cars in any direction as far as you could see. So we stayed open until the last car got rid of their paint. Now, we had some people got tired of waiting and left. And we did a survey. We had the Seagull High girls basketball team doing surveys for us, and we fairly confident we caught every vehicle. We may have missed a few. But that last car was number 660. Our largest event before that had been 320 vehicles. So it was a rather busy day. We finished at 1:45. Well, we finished collecting at 1:45, and it was a little after 4 before the Clean Harbors group got out of there.
All right, so Mac, I would assume then you would deem that as a successful day.
I think it was. We had several residents that were unhappy because the line started at 7 o'clock. We didn't open till 8. And then, I called the mayor and let him know what was going on. He said, just stay open as late as you can. So that's what we did. And the contractor had already let me know on the budget-wise that we were going to be close. And we wound up going a little bit over, but I think we did the right thing.
All right. And the last question. I'm a visual kind of a guy. Can you give me an idea of what 23 tons of paint looks like?
You've been to our convenience centers? The 30-yard open tops that we put bulk items in? It was 4 of those completely full.
Wow. All right. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I can tell you, I got out there at, probably 9:15. The line was coming across the railroad track at Florence Station. I had to go farther past Florence Station, do a U-turn, and come back and get in line on the side of the road. And I sit there before I could get turn right and go across there at Florence Station, go across railroad tracks, was probably a good hour. It took me to take my 7 buckets of old paint. It took an hour and 45 minutes, somewhere in that neighborhood. And there was another line coming in from off of Old National Highway, so just as lengthy. There were that many cars, as Mac said. There's over 600 cars that came through. Now, Mac, you have sent me information that we have applied to have 2 events this next year with TDEC?
Yes, sir.
So, and will TDEC pay for that?
Yes, they discontinued because COVID was the main reason they did that. But they sent out for us, for anybody to apply, just like we have been in the past. So we did the application like we normally do. So if they actually have their collections like they do normally, we should have 2, one in April and one in November.
Okay.
Now, they're going to fuss at it a little bit, and we're going to wind up having to discuss it. Since we paid for this one ourselves, they're wanting us to do something else instead of using their mobile collection sites. I think we still ride on their coattails. We collect the paint and the stuff like we're supposed to.
Sure.
So we should be able to get that. Now, what they're wanting us to do is take the Connex boxes like you see that sits on a tractor trailer truck, and then they put it on a rail car or on a ship or something like that. One that's 53 foot long, they're wanting us to have one of those at a location and just accept. So if you bring in a jug of gasoline, you got to leave your jug with us. We're not pouring it into anything. We're just going to set it where the gasoline goes. And then that contractor would come in and collect that, and they would pay for the cost of that collection. They just wouldn't pay for our people and that type of stuff. And I'm not convinced we want to do that just yet.
One other question, Mr. Chairman. On Mac, you said that it fit in the line item. Are you sure we're allowed to go 10% over?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I was unaware of that. I didn't know because we first said it's going to cost us $25,000 or $30,000, but let's go ahead and you gave us a $50,000, and this committee authorized up to $50,000, so we don't need that. We don't need an amendment going to budget.
Not at this time. There was, because we're not at the end of the budget. We're roughly halfway through, so the line item still had money in it. So as long as you have money in the line item, you can go over your
so
purchase
the $50,000
order.
that was approved went into a specific line item that finances.
Yes.
Okay, and you're not going to come back to us in June and ask for more?
I'm not sure about that yet.
Well, would it be better we go ahead and approve 34, 49, 55?
Well, I'm not sure we're going to need it. We may be okay.
All right.
Any other questions on household hazardous waste?
That was a good event.
You attest that huge increase to COVID?
A lot of it was because people were home cleaning out garages and things like that, so they found the paint that they'd forgotten that they had. A lot of people still were not, taking care of their latex paint themselves where they need to dry that, so they took full advantage of, okay, they're going to take it this time. So that's where a lot of it came from.
Rutherford County actually took a step towards recycling.
Yes.
Good.
Well, it's the first time we really had kind of a up and running with Ashley and a much better website. Another on our Rutherford County TV, we were advertising it, promoting it. So I think we're beginning to get more word out to let people come as well. So I think we'll have two huge successes this next year. Plus our population is growing, People are used to hanging on to it and disposing of it,
And I asked several people how they heard about us because I was afraid we weren't going to be very well attended. So I was way wrong there. Most of them heard word of mouth from their neighbor or their relatives. They didn't actually see our information. So word of mouth still is very, very effective. We just finished up Thanksgiving week. I track a lot of information that I can answer questions that y'all never thought about asking. But so I want to answer one for you that you hadn't thought about asking. I keep up with productive truck hours on a daily basis. And I do it every day, and it goes back to 2015. And what I do that for is at the end of the budget year, when we finish this budget year and they say, all right, how much money did we spend out of the convenience center budget? Not how much we had, how much we actually spent. I compare that to the actual truck hours to get an hourly rate for the truck. That's what I use it for. But I went Thanksgiving week of 2019 versus Thanksgiving week 2020. It was the slowest week we've had. And I was really shocked and amazed. But you can tell what's going on in society today by how much garbage they're generating. In 2019, it was like 430 truck hours that week. We were 92 and a half truck hours less this week, or this year, 2020. To give you an idea what that is, that's 11 and a half garbage trucks working 8 hours a day less garbage in the week. I'm hoping what that meant is they didn't have the large gatherings and they didn't get out and didn't go places. I'm hoping that's what that's telling us. I guess our test results for COVID will let us know in the next few days or weeks. But that was kind of a surprising number for me. We spoke about it just briefly last month. What I'd like to do is go ahead and announce to the schools, Rutherford County and the City of Murfreesboro schools, that effective January 1, 2021, we will no longer provide a single stream recycling service in the schools. We will change that to what's called a dual stream, and it'll be cardboard and paper only. The plastic and aluminum tin cans will not be part of the program. That's what we were speaking about last month. If you remember, it was costing us $55 a ton, roughly $1,100 a week. We can use the same truck, same driver, same containers, and just take the plastic, no, not the plastic, but the cardboard and paper, and actually get paid for that material. So I want to get with the school board and let them know to get the word out over the Christmas holidays. We will change the signage on those containers, and when school starts back January the 2nd, probably, whatever the day it starts back, we'll have it switched over. Any questions on that?
For a number of years, the school board had a problem with basically illegal dumping into their dumpsters. Is that still an issue?
Not as bad. It still does happen, but it's not as bad as it used to be. But we have the signage. We don't have enough. We're going to have some more made that just says cardboard and paper only. So we're going to change the signage on those dumpsters, and hopefully the residents that are going to do the illegal dumping won't dump in the recycle stuff. But a lot of the schools, to address that illegal dumping, they have put up fences and gates.
I would also think their security cameras might also be pointed toward that to allay that.
Most of the security cameras in that area are pointed to the back dock of the cafeteria to see what activity is going on there. Some of those will capture some of our containers, but not all of them.
Thank you, Chairman. So there's still going to be one recycle bin, or there'll be a recycle bin and a solid waste bin
At schools.
at the schools, and,
Yes.
and multiple of each, whatever. So the staff or the kid, however that's going to happen, are now only separating paper and cardboard,
That is correct.
and we're going to dump and bury the rest.
What?
We're going to dump and bury the rest.
Yes.
Mac, since you're deal with numbers, I would like to request, can you tell the next committee, can you get numbers together and tell us exactly how much money this county spends on schools? Truck hours, doing the recycling, all that. Would you be able to get those numbers?
An exact number will be hard to get. I can use
A roundabout, just,
I can use the hourly cost that we come up with, the way I explained how we do it, and those trucks that do the schools, the trash and the recycle trucks, and I give you that number. Now, is that going to be the exact right number? I don't know. It'll be the closest we can get.
about figure.
Okay.
And then also include the cost for the containers as well.
We don't buy those containers. Each entity that has a front loader container has to buy that themselves. We don't buy that one. Now, we have repaired a few for them, but we haven't purchased anybody one. Any questions on that so far?
I've got a question, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman.
sir.
Yes, sir. Chairman?
Mac, this proposal to not take plastic anymore, is that something you've decided on your own, or do you need permission from us to do that?
I don't know the answer to that. Now, we're still going to take plastic in the convenience centers. We're just not going to do it in the school system. So we're not discontinuing plastic completely.
I mean, is that just an executive decision you've made, or have you asked? I don't recall being asked.
Well, it's an operational decision. It's $1,100 a week is what it costs us to actually dump that load on the average. And that's not counting the trucking cost or anything else to go along with it.
Well, I remember you telling us last time that if it was contaminated, that it cost us, what, $155 versus $55? Is my memory correct?
Yes, sir. You're really close. The loads in the convenience centers are all plastic. So they do not run those across the sort line. The sort line is what charges $55 an hour. So if we take a contaminated load of plastic to Waste Management there on River Hills, they charge us for the percentage of contamination. So if it's 50% contamination, then we get charged 50% of the weight. Most of those plastic containers will run anywhere from 0.45 to 0.55. They're half a ton. So it's not a huge dollar amount on those loads. Now on the school truck, yeah, that's you get in some tonnage there.
Well, the reason I brought that up, I don't really have a problem with this right now. I want to give it some more thought, but, you know, I went the other day to my local convenience center, and I had a tire that I needed to get rid of. And, of course, I found out that you weren't taking tires. And as I was driving home, I looked on the side of the road about, I don't know, less than 1/8 of a mile up, and there's probably 15 tires in the ditch there. So some of our decisions, now we're going to have somebody go there and pick them up out of the ditch. So I don't know that we've made the right decision on the tires or what's the best answer there, but some of these I think we need to discuss a little more.
Okay, on the tire issue, we were collecting tires at 4 locations, 3 convenience centers, one in Eagleville, one in Smyrna, and one on Craner Road, and the 4th location was actually the Rutherford County landfill. And what we were doing with the tires is when they would get several tires, they would call every night when they give their inventory and tell us how many tires they have. And we would send our litter crew out there to pick up the tires, take them to the landfill, stack them in a trailer, and let Yolanda know how many tires we had. We kept up with that on a ticket. And then several years ago, we decided we need to try to figure out who's using all these tires. So we put a list in the convenience centers. If you bring in a tire, you're supposed to put down your name and your driver's license number and how many tires you brought. And when it was going through that list, you would see the same person multiple times. And we would only take 4 tires at a time and bringing in 4 tires. I don't know any resident in this county that has 4 tires 2 and 3 times a week, every week. So that's businesses that was taking advantage of us is what that was. Remember that, why we did it now? That's Commissioner P, you remember that discussion?
I understand what you're saying. I just not necessarily agreeing that that's maybe the best policy. So what am I supposed to do with this 1 tire I've got now?
Take it to Rutherford County landfill, and it'll cost you $1.
All right.
Anything else? If you'll go to what I had last, apparently y'all had it.
Would it make Mr. P feel better if we made a motion on the floor and had it seconded about doing away with doing the recycling parts at the school that you're wanting to do to save the $1,100? Or, Mr. P, would that make you feel better?
It sure would.
I'd like to make the motion to approve what Mac has talked about on the recycling at the schools. It was to take cardboard and paper only and let the rest of it go to a landfill. Is that correct?
Correct.
That is my motion.
Second.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Rachel?
Commissioner Harris?
Yes.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
No.
Commissioner Sherino?
Yes.
Commissioner Blair?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Chairman Cush?
Yes. All right, thank you. Motion passes.
And you have a rendering of the Walter Hill Convenience Center and the way we'd like to restripe Landfill Road to change the direction and the flow of the center. This is something that Commissioner Piercy and I have talked about and discussed for quite some time. We do have the drawing. It has been sent to the Highway Department, but I have not spoken with Mr. Brooks at this time. So we're just wanting to see what we're planning on trying to do to help alleviate some of the traffic issues that are actually on Jefferson Pike.
Would this be something that would have to go out to bid, or is this something that Mr. Brooks's team would try and do self-work?
Normally what happens if they do work like that for us, we pay for any of the asphalt, they do the other stuff, and then the actual striping, he has a contract already in place on the striping, and we would have to pay for the actual striping to be completed.
Okay, all right. So this would be first on the list in terms of refurbish?
Yes.
Walter Hill. And is Leanna, where does Leanna fall on that list?
We still don't have any contracts to do anything at Leanna yet.
Is that something we can self-perform, or is that too large of a project?
What are you calling self-perform?
Greg Brooks and Public Works do that work.
Talking about at Walter Hill or at Leanna?
No, Leanna.
I haven't talked to them about doing that. They would have to charge us, I believe. And right. I don't know what that fee structure might be. Okay.
Well, Leanna's the one, right, that we've put out to bid a couple of times, and it's either been really high or we have had no interest.
That's correct.
Okay. And has Jay, is Jay still here? Jay, has your group looked at that and put together a budget? Okay. Do you think your budget is accurate and we're just getting bids from folks that really are so busy that you're just throwing a big number at it?
Well, the budget on the existing, or what was bid before, was not that much. We had to put together a formalized estimate. We were kind of concept plans out, get some feedback. We need to put forward the best we can. We wanted to formalize what was wanted out there and then configuration and all that.
Okay, all right. So it's on the to-do list. All right.
Mr. Chairman, we've been working with Jay and his firm for a couple of months and looked at redoing several of the centers. We have concepts on several of the facilities, Rockville, Leanna, Almaville.
Weekly.
Being our busiest. I would say we're only about 60 days away from opening the RFP, and I would recommend to the committee that we wait and see what comes in, and then give us some clear direction of who is willing to do what.
Right.
And then incorporate all of them into one.
Okay.
Be my recommendation to the committee.
All right.
That is my report, unless y'all have questions.
We need a motion to approve his reports.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the report.
Thank you, Commissioner P. Chairman P.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
On the mayor's recommendation, were you talking about all the convenience centers that we're wanting to revise and make it all? Were you talking about what we're trying to do at Walter Hill?
Yes, sir.
Us to wait?
60 days. We've waited this long. Why not? Let's look at all of them. It might be more attractive. If one of the companies out of, I don't know how many are going to turn in an RFP, they may have that in their suggestion of what they want to do with our waste stream. If they choose not to do that, and we proceed ahead with all of ours, we might be better off in attracting a contractor to come in and provide Walter Hill, Almaville, Leanna, Rockville, et cetera, all at one time, is because it appears not enough to get someone to do just one. We've seen that in Leanna. So I'm suggesting another 60 days, Commissioner, if you don't mind. I think that we'd be prudent in doing that.
Mac, has the state already signed off on this drawing?
No, sir.
We're waiting on that.
No, we haven't sent it to the state yet.
They hadn't signed off on it.
Now, all the striping that we're doing is on the county road, not on the state.
But we still got to wait on the state.
I wasn't planning on waiting on them.
This is a serious issue at Walter Hill, and I hear about it every weekend.
I do too.
And we've already done 90% of the work.
Yes, sir.
And I don't think we spent probably a tenth of the money that this committee and budget allotted to do this for.
Yes,
I
sir.
would really like to let Mac proceed and get this traffic off that road before somebody gets killed. Now, if we want to wait 60 days, roll the dice, I guess it's your call.
Well, no, it's this committee's call. I'm just making a recommendation, Commissioner, but I'm thinking that we've had difficulty in Leanna. Twice we put it out to bid, couldn't get anybody, and now we're right on the verge of companies who have expressed, we know there's going to be at least 13 or 14 expressing how they want to handle. Some may say, we don't want to touch your convenience centers, you do it yourself. Or they may come back and say, yeah, we'll do it, we'll build it the way you want it done and reconfigure it, but there's a cost. So we may decide, the committee may decide to do it ourselves, and then if they want to take it and just run it, we don't know. We're 60 days away. We've come this far. I think it would be prudent, it's a prudent business decision to wait 60 more days. I get the same calls that you do about the traffic, the smell. I told you I was behind you, and I will continue to be behind you because we need to do something about this traffic.
We really do.
Yes, sir, we do.
I hate to see somebody get killed out there
Right.
that's not even going to
Yes,
the
sir.
trash dump.
Well, and we've been saying that
Out in
for,
oncoming traffic.
we've been saying that for years, and we're this close to getting there.
Yeah, we are.
Yes, sir, 60 days away.
We're really about this close.
Yes, sir.
I'm not in agreement with it, but I guess we'll wait.
What work has been done out there, Steve? I know we approved putting a gate on Landfill Road, rerouting your traffic, kind of a temporary stopgap. Is that correct? Have you already moved fences and moved gates and put down gravel? And
We've already put down gravel, we've put in covered pipe, we've put in an existing gate we already had. All we're liking to actually get this traffic moved is those stripes. That's where we are.
I really don't have a problem putting the stripes in. If you've got the money in your budget, Mac, put the stripes in, and that's a state route. Will TDOT approve it?
Well, the stripes that we're putting in is on the county road.
So you're going to put it on Landfill Road?
Yes.
Okay. So you've already got the gate open. I supported you on that, Commissioner, getting working with the road superintendent. I think we got the drain pipe. We opened the gate in the back.
It's all finished, all except for the stripes.
Yes, sir.
yeah, I would urge us to despite your prudent decision on these big revisions to the other convenience centers, I'd like to remove this particular aspect and get this
If he's got
small portion
striping,
wrapped up.
striping in there and it's inside his budget, I don't have a problem with that at all.
If we're on the 5-yard line, we might as well punch it in.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
Do we need any motions, or I think all this is in the minutes previously to get this done. Is it okay if we proceed? Bill, do you think we need to do any language in the minutes?
No, sir. But based on this concept, because we're actually, the picture I was looking at, it looks like it's going to cost a lot more because we're going to bring, Jay, Mac, it looks like we've got 3 lanes coming in and 1 lane going out.
That's correct.
Okay, so who's going to do the 3 lanes? Because right now it's a 2-lane road.
But it's wide. In most places, it's wide enough for all that. If you're looking at that kind of a beigey color area, that's got a gravel strip through there that would need to be added, but it can stay gravel if it has to.
It can't stay gravel.
It can if it has to. You know, the intent is to make the entrance wide enough that everybody comes in that one side, and then you have 2 lanes wide for queuing and 1 lane that continues on through to where the landfill can still have access.
And Superintendent Brooks, how much has he agreed to? He's already done a lot. Has he agreed to pave that?
I have not talked to him about that yet.
You know, so I haven't seen this, Mac. You know, I wish you would have brought it to me to where I could actually look at this. This is the first time I've seen this.
Yes, sir.
Let's wait and talk to Superintendent Brooks and see what he'll do to help us, Mac. I feel like he'll do some, and go from there.
Mr. Chairman, I don't want to stir up the water at all here, but when all this came about as far as striping and with the engineering company coming in, Mike Hughes, our county engineer, and them got together and we actually laid out a plan, and it went to Greg Brooks. Greg Brooks doesn't do striping himself. It's a hired company to come in and actually do the striping.
Right.
But it's got to be by state code as far as the striping goes in for the lane widths and all of that. So he's just waiting to get, you know, the final outcome, I guess, on either the engineering or through Mike Hughes or through Mac or the mayor or this body, because there's a price tag to it, and then whatever you decide to do, That's,
So Mike, are we going to have to bid out the striping?
The bid is already in place for the striping. The Highway Department has a bid for striping.
they have an ongoing bid that stripes any county, anything that the road superintendent wants to stripe, but they have to have the authority to go and do it, and what's the job, and what are they actually striping?
And then when I talked to Greg about what we were trying to do here, he said he needed an engineered drawing to show what the striping is going to look like. So that's when we got Jay involved to get us an engineered drawing.
Well, I just talked to the engineer, and that's been sent to our elected official, Greg Brooks, on the highway department. He's got it. So now, whether they're backed up in striping or whatever, he's got to send a PO or a job, tag to get this thing striped. And so I think you just got to follow up and make...
That would be us doing the PO to get it striped, using his contractor.
It'll probably have to be paid for through the highway department, because it's a subcontractor of the highway department. It's not with the highway department. They're a totally different company.
That's correct.
But it goes through the highway department to actually be done, from my understanding.
His budget.
From the highway road superintendent.
So solid waste has to reimburse the highway department.
Normally when we do paving, we just pay the paving bill, but we can do it either way. Doesn't make any difference.
All right, well, it sounds like we need to have a sit down with Commissioner Brooks and Mac, and maybe you, Steve, and just figure out exactly what needs to be done and how the money, if there's monies, how the money needs to be transferred from account to account, and how it's billed. And then if the cost is within Mac's budget or the project budget, we just need to know what the final number is going to be.
Y'all remember there was $20,000 budgeted for this project.
What have we spent?
3.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, we still have to move containers and everything else, right? We have to mobilize? Okay. All right.
Let's wait, Mac, and talk to Mr. Brooks and get some numbers, whatever it's going to cost, and bring it back in here to this 7-member committee. And then if they want to go ahead with it, we'll vote on it. And if they don't, we'll wait.
Okay.
If we wait on our RFP, they'll come in 60 days. I'd say action on that's probably a year plus 60 days. So it's not like it's going to be done in 60 days. But I'm willing to hold up, and let's talk to Mr. Brooks, see what he can do, what the striping's going to cost, and bring it back to this committee. That way it'll all be in the clear.
My understanding, this drawing was emailed to Mr. Brooks Friday afternoon. They don't work on Fridays. And then my understanding, he wasn't there yesterday. He had something else going on, so he may not have even seen it yet.
So, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
So, Mac, on this pink area on here, that shows a proposed new pavement. So we're not going to worry about that. We're just going to gravel it.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay. And then the dotted area, extra gravel, where we're moving the dumpster. See, that was my concern, Commissioner Piercy, is that I thought we were looking at not just striping the road on Jefferson Pike. I thought this was being presented to move the dumpsters back here in this dotted area. That's what I was saying, that we should wait. That's what we're trying to do with all the other ones.
The only dumpster that's been moved is some of the open tops where we put in the new gate. The compactor system is going to stay where it is, and when we bring them in the back in the new gate, we can twin aisle the cars, and that doubles the amount of cars we can take off that road. The arrows next to the gate right there, there's a shoulder between the actual pavement and the fence way wide enough for a third lane of traffic, so he was going to scoot that over and make the third lane. We're running a very low budget operation right there, very low.
Yeah, I really want to.
Max said we spent $3,000 and got it this close.
I totally, I agree with this, and I want to make it good for you out there, and that's what we should do for everyone. I mean,
Right.
Almaville and...
Right.
and
Lascassas needs some help the same way
It does.
Annabelle does. They
Yes.
all do.
Yes, sir, they
But
do.
we've got this one so close, so close.
All right, sounds like we just need a little more detail.
A little time.
Yeah, all right. Did we approve Max? Okay, all right. But we do have a motion and a second, correct? All right. If you'll call roll.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes.
Commissioner Harris? Yes. Commissioner Blair?
Yes.
Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sharino?
Yes.
Chairman Cush?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Chairman P.
before Matt gets away, I just want to make one quick comment. I was the only one to vote no on the plastic no longer being sorted at the schools. And the reason I did that, I realized the cost is not something that we need to continue doing, but I think we're moving backwards when we stop recycling. And I think that we need to investigate, see if there's a better way to keep this stuff from getting contaminated so that we can still take care of the plastic there and continue to recycle. Anyway, I wanted to explain that, so thank you.
Well, and I understood, and I understand where you're going. Now, the contamination is not the factor on the school systems. It's the processing fee to where they have to separate out those 5 commodities that are in there together. So the dual stream will go to a different company that has no charge for that separation. You know, so that's where we'll be capturing cardboard and paper, but there won't be a charge. We'll actually get paid for it instead.
Right, and I approve of that, but still, you know, we're losing that plastic there.
Right. Now, address something that the mayor said we may have. Steve and I have already received an email from a company requesting a laundry list of questions to be answered about the convenience centers and productivity, numbers of containers, how many people it takes to operate the centers and the trucks and all that kind of stuff. So I'm spending some time. I've got a lot of that information already pulled together, but not all of it. But once we get that, once I get it together, I'll send it to Steve and let him look at it and see where he can get any questions before we put that out for the public and those that are actually going to bid on it.
Thank you, Mac. Any other business? All right, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last item under other business, I would like to once again come before this committee and ask for your consideration to either enforcing what laws that we currently have on littering or increasing. We can't go below what the state of Tennessee sets, but we can go equal to or anything above that. As chairman of the workhouse, or our correctional facility, correctional work center, we've shifted all that from MAC over to the correctional work center, so our inmates are out doing it. We've actually got the women out working now, picking up the interchanges, and they're enjoying being able to get out. You know, especially because of COVID, you know, psychologically, they're enjoying getting out and working. We have all the trailers up and running. And I was talking to Commissioner Gammon, and I'd like for him to come and testify because he is actually running one of those crews at the Correctional Work Center about how bad it's actually getting. It seems to be getting worse, especially on 840. The trash, he gets a crew out there and they'll do 5, 6, 7, 8 miles a day, and they come back the next day and it's just as full again. We've got to get serious about this, about the fines. You know, I was looking at what some other states do. Alabama has a $500 minimum. Arkansas has a $100 to $1,000 plus community service. Tennessee, we have some pretty good laws in Tennessee. If you are caught littering for less than 5 pounds, it's a Class C misdemeanor. It has imprisonment up to 30 days or both up to 40 hours of community service. the court may also require work in a recycling facility up to 8 hours. If it's between 5 pounds and 10 pounds, it's a Class B misdemeanor, $500, 6 months in jail, or both up to 80 hours of community service and work in a litter center. And then over 10 pounds or any commercial purpose, it becomes a Class A misdemeanor, which is 1129. So I think our laws are there. We probably need to do some marketing and advertising on our website. We need to do some signage, work with TDOT, and get some signs out in our county and let people know we're serious about it. If we have to put up some billboards, whatever, public service announcements on WGNS, that this committee is taking a stand that we're going to be serious about it. If you could, I asked Commissioner Gammon, he's here tonight and came, and he'd like to maybe explain to this committee how bad it's getting.
Commissioner Gammon?
Suspend the rules, let him come up and speak.
Make a motion to suspend the rules. Okay. How you doing, sir?
Good. Commissioners, I'll give you an example. Well, one thing we were talking about back there, I don't know what happened to it, but at one point TDOT also offered some trail cams. That'd be really good, maybe out on the county roads, maybe put some along the interstate, but trail cams that could catch. We do have some spots where you may have some guys that do recapping business on their tires, and it found sometimes it's the same spot. And we're going back here and picking. Today we picked up 15 tires in 4 miles, 80 bags of trash. And that was from, we started at 840, I think it was 840 down to Almover Road, right to the other side of Almover Road. You got 80 bags of trash right there. Now, I don't work out the county roads. We've got another crew that does that. I'll go out and pick it. We'll get calls every once in a while that somebody's dumped some. I may run out and grab spots where some of the trash has been dumped. These guys, these inmates work really hard. This is my personal opinion. There's other things that need to be thrown in, and I know Commissioner Dodge, I've got an old, you might want to help me here on this one, but you got from some type of a litter, some type of litter laws or something that y'all had like 8 or 10 years ago, I think.
Yeah, I'm afraid I can't speak to that. I'd have to go back and reflect on the laws that we looked at previously.
Right. Things like that. Having the judge, I know she's said that she will not. I know in the past we've had them just people that they'll just smack me on the hand for dumping in the past, but we've already been told from the judge that she's not going to do that, and that's our big thing. We can be out there picking up trash all day long. Captain Smitty made a comment that I'll repeat in the public safety, that we can go out there and pick up trash and come back the next day. In some spots, it looks like we never even touched it. I mean, I've got to go back tomorrow and pick up an area that we just picked up last week because it looks like we hadn't been there, right around Church Street. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, what department oversees trail cams? Would that be you?
Well, I don't know who oversees. TDOT is going. I understand TDOT's supposed to donate the trail cams. Now I don't know where it went from there.
So we need to find out which department is going to be putting them up, monitoring them. So we don't know who would do that.
I don't think we've got that far.
No, sir, not yet.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Chairman P.
I'm on public safety, and this discussion did come up in public safety. They talked about maybe sending something to Chairman Harris's group and steering And I told them that we were looking at this in Public Works. Of course, Chairman Harris is on this committee too. Personal opinion is I was kind of surprised to hear the mayor stating some of the laws there. I didn't know that they were on the books and that stringent. But I think we need to get with our judges who oversee these people that are caught and see if there's actually anything they need from the state legislation. Of course, we'll be seeing them usually in January. So if we could get that taken care of, one of us reach out and talk to our judges to make sure that everything as far as the laws go or what they need to be able to help us with this problem. If not, then we can ask our legislators if we can tweak these or maybe change some of the laws so that the judges feel comfortable with, helping us take care of these people that are littering.
Mr. Chairman, I think that's a good point, Chairman P. I think based on, I want to go in the code and look at it tomorrow, and we can get, of course, our own legal team to look at it. But I think if we were just to change a few words, tweak a few words in legislation and let our delegation take it back and say first offense, it is 5 pounds or less, Class C misdemeanor, and those fines are already there. So it'd take very little wordage just to say first offense, because that's what's happening. Before I got here, you all established an environmental court, and the judge, if she's just slapping them on the hand and not doing anything to them, it takes away the incentive of anybody wanting to turn anybody in. Everybody has video cameras on their dashes and in their car, etc. And we may, at some point in time, Mr. Chairman, we used to have someone who actually drove around, Bart Smith, drove around and gave tickets. He was a wheel tax officer, and I was told today that they were in line. I believe, Commissioner, you're the one that told me that. You were in line, and how many cars you saw from out of county this weekend at the convenience center. They were not in our county going in. So maybe it's getting to that point to where people are spilling over because they get to come into our county for free.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Mac,
I want to elaborate on what he just said. I brought this up. I've been for an officer, and we're into half of the budget year is right now. What do we need to do do we need to go through budget? Does this Public Works need to agree? But I think we need to take a step and either go with something of an officer or not. But I agree that we should have one. And I think that we're spending a lot of money. This is inmate labor, but we're still
thousands of dollars. Still thousands of dollars of what we're having to pay and pick up the electronics, the refrigerators, the mattresses. It's getting crazy as fast as what we're growing, and people are looking for places to go dump, so they're going out in the county and dumping.
So, Mr. Mayor, what can we do to get this process going?
Well, either we're going to have to decide to create the position, which we'd have to get Sonia to tell us what it's going to cost with a vehicle. I think we got a vehicle sitting down there at 319 that won't have to pay for that. We've got a couple of them down there. We've got 2 hybrids and 1 Explorer that we could probably use that belongs to the property assessor that's not being used. It would take the person with, I guess we need to talk to legal. Would they have the authority to issue a ticket? We need to talk to our legal department to see that. Now, I believe that Mr. Smith did have a badge. He was a law enforcement officer, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Commissioner. And I don't know if that went through the sheriff's department. There's things that we need to check on, but I would say by the time we get through doing this, we might as well plan on adding a position as we go into July 1 of 21-22 budget. We're only 6 months away from that.
The law that the mayor was talking about, there was a phrase in there, the one I saw, I don't know if it's the same one you saw, that those fines collected can be given to the ones that turned you in.
That's correct.
So if that's the case,
But that's got to be advertised. You know, we
Yes.
need to market that.
Yes, so that's the incentive for the people that you were speaking of to call and report. So if there's the big fine, if you dump a truckload of stuff, that's a $2,500 fine. So if somebody saw you do it and you got convicted of it, that somebody could get that $2,500. You're going to get some people to turn them in that way. Now, if you go back and look at the litter grant stuff, the litter grant comes through solid waste. The workhouse is actually doing the using inmates and picking people up. It's not solid waste individuals anymore. We've got one that's helping to train them. It's $112,000, $900, $500, something like that is what the grant is. Our budget is well above that, so it doesn't cover all the budget. But you take the litter grant budget that we have, you take the 2 TDOT contracts that the workhouse has, we need 4 people on the street. We don't have enough people. We've got the positions. The workhouse is having a hard time hiring people. But we've got the equipment and the positions for 4 litter crews to be on the street every day. We just can't get the people to put in there. Any other questions?
May I ask that we go back in session, please?
Yes. Thank you. We are back in session.
Chairman, I would request that we bring back to this committee as soon as next month the law that the mayor referenced and the director referenced, and get us kind of back up to speed, because there are fines, rather severe, and there's the payment to the witness who can choose to turn somebody in. So there's some meat to it, but I think we're just ignorant of or don't recall what those laws were. Yep. And then I think, Craig, we could have a good conversation on, can we fund a position and to do that very thing. There's an opportunity here, but I just ask that we regroup with good, solid information.
Right.
I'll be prepared to have that to you.
My last trip to state of Georgia last week on I-75, I noticed a new sign that said littering, $1,000 fine. So does the Georgia DOT have to approve that, and do they put those signs up? And who establishes that? Is that on the DOT level? So we need to find that out from Tennessee DOT. Who sets that limit, and who puts the signs out on 840 where Gammon is having some of these issues?
The fine limit is already in the code. Like I said at the beginning, you can't go anything less than Tennessee code as far as dollars. You can equal it or you can go above it.
Right. I guess my point there is, when I see a sign that says $1,000 fine for littering,
get your attention.
Yeah. I'm not throwing an apple core out the window, because like the Mayor said, everybody's got a camera or a cell phone or something on their dash. $1,000 is getting my attention, right?
Backseat.
I would think the state would have to put those signs up, because they take down every sign on state right away that they do not put up.
That's correct from a safety procedure. I believe it. I'm correct. Jay, do you know anything about that? Okay, Mike. I think they have to designate that, but I think we can put the request in that we would like more signs up and down 840 going through Rutherford County or the stretch of 24.
Right, and maybe at steering our delegates that are going to show
January. Sure.
Maybe we get them. Maybe statewide they increase the fine on a state route or an interstate to $1,000.
I think if you put those words "first offense," if somebody takes a picture of you throwing a banana peel out and it's first offense, then she can't smack them on the hand. She has to go by the code.
All good discussion.
Who do we need to talk to about these cameras? I mean, what department do MAC Or do we need to go to Greg Brooks?
Mac's got his hand up.
He says he'll check on that.
Mac, I'd like you to look into that, because I think if we can get those free or granted, I mean, that could help us a tremendous amount.
Especially in the rural areas where they're going out in the county and dumping.
So is that something you would handle, Mac?
The cameras are not free. We pay for them, but we get being reimbursed through the grant funding.
Okay, I'm okay with that, but I mean, could we not, was your department the one that picks them up, maintenance and all that?
Yes, we do not have any at this time, but we can start that. My concern is they'll get stolen. That's what happens with a lot of other counties.
Can you get us a price next month?
I can.
Thank you.
Can you put them up high enough where they can't just run over and grab them?
Yeah, that's right. I'm willing to do a little tree climbing to plant a couple, see what happens. All right. So we all set for that discussion? Everybody know their role and assignment for the litter discussion? All right. Anything else? Have a holly jolly. We'll see you next year. Oh, yeah, full commission, obviously, which is next Thursday. All right, thank you, gentlemen. Yes, thank you.